in the day for another new model too. Okay, so maybe I'll close this door, Ron, if that's okay.
Sure, and you might want to close the back one.
I don't want to disturb the hallway. Thanks very much.
Well, also they can come in. I mean,
Yeah.
at some point in time, the room across the way that we were in is going to be used. And
Right.
could be
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like now to go create a new model. Okay. And in order to create that model, we are going to use. Well, you tell me. How do we create a new model in AnyLogic? Can you remind me? Yeah, we'll do file, new, and it will be model, okay? And this model will be called here obesity type 2 diabetes. So it's obesity type 2 diabetes, okay, T2DM. And I'm going to go put it as I want. You don't have to do this. But I'm going to go put it in the bootcamp folder just so I can easily post it throughout the course of the day. Okay? And bootcamps, here we go. Okay, the model time units here will be years, ladies and gentlemen, as befits a lifelong condition. Okay? Now, model time units in AnyLogic bear a little bit of discussion. So time unit of years, okay? Years. AnyLogic runs by default in continuous time, and as such, it's a little bit different from traditional agent-based packages out there. It is more similar to what you see in POEM or ModGen models, where continuous time is used by default. And Michael Wolfson and I have a each different perspectives on modeling, and they have a lot of overlap. They have some differences. This is one area where we both agree completely from our direct experience. Having the ability to specify continuous time, so events occur at their natural point in time, not at fixed lockstep times, that has really big advantages for simplifying a model description. If you specify things only at fixed time points, say every 1 year on the year, some of the bookkeeping gets quite complex because you got to do everything for the past year at that time, consider everything, and there's competing risks that apply. Did this person, develop cancer before they died from lung disease or vice versa? Continuous time is very natural. Events happen at the natural point, whenever that happens to occur during the year. Okay? So,
plus, you get the advantage of, like, for example, you can count persons in discrete time,
yeah,
but you can count person years.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Exactly, yes. Yeah, I'll show you where that is. I would suggest for most of you, you do years, but I'm going to actually make the mistake of calling it the default seconds, okay? Now, by the way, the fact that it's in seconds is not something to be dismissed. Unfortunately, one of the biggest rookie mistakes with models, and one that afflicts even those who have been working with it for years, even decades, is that you forget to set your time unit, okay? And the default is, regrettably, seconds. Now, if you immediately nip it in the bud, in the way I'm going to show you, you're fine. But if you start to build things in your models that are graphs, so please don't do this, okay? I'm just going to show you, okay? I'm going to call in, today we're going to be making heavy use of graphs. I'm going to call in a time plot here, okay? This time plot, because the model is currently in seconds, because I set it to be seconds here, this thing that I dragged in here from the palette, the time plot, it has an update time of every 1 second, okay? Now, suppose I were now to remember to go change the model time unit, and to do this, you go to the model as a whole, and you'll go up and you'll choose the time unit to be years, okay? Now, you might think you're out of the woods. After all, it's admirably easy to change it to years here. But the fact is, this thing is still being updated every second. And I could tell you a number of models I've seen from students, and when this feature was first introduced from my own, where I forgot to change the time unit initially, and I had some things updating every second, and the model's incredibly slow model, and you're thinking, what am I doing wrong? You know, am I updating the state chart too infrequently? You know, do I have to scale back in the detail I use to represent the situation? It's nothing so deep. It's just there's some dumb chart or some dumb event that's going off every second, and you have to time unit the model in years. And so, you know, it's updating the chart, updating it. Is anything to be shown? Updating every second. You know, the number of people with diabetes, and it's pointless, but it's there, hidden, latent. It's you know, a adverse force in your model you don't realize. So, ladies and gentlemen, take it from someone who's been around the bush a few times. Please try to specify your time unit up front. If you forget, that's fine. When you go into the model, and go up to the model as a whole and change it as soon as possible. If you have added anything since creating the model, before you change it, go back and make sure that those things aren't being updated every second. It's a very adverse situation, and one we've told the folks who create any logic, we've exhorted them, please change it from seconds as the default time unit, because I see no rhyme or reason why that would be chosen as the default time unit.
Physicists rather than social scientists?
No, you know, it's
It's the top of the, it's at the top of the list.
yeah. Although, yeah, there are milliseconds there as well, and so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why they selected seconds. I think it was a big mistake. After all, if it was years by default, and then some people wanted a model that's running in seconds, all it would mean like that by default the charts would update very slowly. And that's an easier thing to fix or to find, to diagnose, than if they're updating incredibly frequently and just not showing anything new. So anyway, take it from someone who's been bitten by it many times. Yeah.
So then if you make that mistake, is there a fast way to find where everything is in seconds so you can change it?
Great question. Okay. So probably one of the biggest practical shortcomings, certainly of any logic, is that when you're first learning the framework, this is less so once you become really adept at it, where you have conventions worked out where everything is, etc. But when you're first learning it, one of my observations is one of people's biggest challenges is where things are found. Like, there's some logic, and I know it has to do with, you know, reporting, or I know it has to do with dealing with certain risk of mortality. Where does that live? And, you know, or the immigration, does it live in Maine? Does it live in person? Where is it? And broadly speaking, once you become very familiar with any logic, you tend to know where to go for certain types of things very clearly, because there's very simple rules. And I'm trying to impart some of these rules. And there, you know, I would know to go check events and go check time plots and go check data sets for their updates. But if you're not in a position to do that, I'll show you one very useful thing. And this is something I often leave, for lack of a better reason, till the final day. But you'll notice there's the tools create documentation for a model. And this tools create documentation will actually present for you a thoroughgoing description of our model. Now, for reasons that were not clear to me, when I clicked on that just a moment ago, it was grayed out. Now it's not grayed out. I'm going to say create documentation of this model. Now, this documentation will be particularly impoverished right now because the model is almost empty. But let's go take a look. So I'm going to say, and it's going to create a PDF document, as I have requested, which is going to summarize the model. Now, if you were to go within this model, you could go and search for certain types of things. So let me go here and And again, I'm going to do this right now yourself, but let me drag in a plot just like I did before. Oh, no. See, now because I'm dragging in now, the time unit is going to be years, right? So I go and I will perversely set this back to seconds. Here we go. Here we go. And set it to seconds. And then I will drag in a plot. And because the time unit of the model is by default seconds, this will inherit that time unit, okay? And now I'm going to go change it back to years for the model and pretend that I'm wistfully thinking that I fixed the problem. And now I'm going to generate that documentation. Okay, oh man, mumble. Okay, here we go. And notice that if I do this, it'll ask me what do I want to create documentation. I'm going to do select all here, okay? This is a very important step because by default, if you just say finish, as I did before, there's certain things it doesn't present on. I'm going to say finish. Here we go. Okay. Now I'm going to search for, and my conjecture is maybe I can find this. Here we go. 1 second. See this? So by searching in this documentation, I could actually systematically locate all things which refer to seconds in the model, and therefore have a sense as to whether there's some residual item that's based on an incorrect time unit. Okay, so that's what I'd probably do as the trick to track down unit issues. Okay, are we okay with that? Okay, so documentation can be very valuable for a model, and it can include more information or less information. You could throttle it, but basically it can be a pretty handy reference for you for what's in your model, and clue you into where things live that you might not be clear about in your head. Okay, any other questions? Yes, Ron.
Okay, so then is this operating in discrete time as a year, or is it continuous?
It's continuous time.
As specified in your function.
Yeah. So thank you, Ron.
Yeah.
So the time unit here, students get confused about this quite a bit. The time unit, they think, oh, my model's going to run a lot slower if the time unit is weeks than if it's months, or if it's years, maybe it won't be updating enough. But that's actually not an issue because it's continuous time. Things will occur at their natural points, no matter how fine time is. The time needs of the model are, like with events going off for cardiovascular disease incidents and then stroke, the occurrence of a stroke. There might be some things which are only needed, infrequently, like updating your cardiovascular disease status in terms of progression. And then there's going to be some things which might go in an episodic fashion, very, very bursty. So the occurrence of a stroke, right, and minutes matter. That's no problem for any logic. This is one of the virtues of having things in continuous time. If things need to go in a burst, at that critical time, you don't need to make the whole model lockstep update at that finer time scale. Things will occur at their natural rate, no matter how fine-grained that is. So just because you said time units of years, the units is is for the most part ladies and gentlemen, it's convenience. It's what's our yardstick for measuring time. If we say 1, it's a year. It means a year, 1 unit of time. Now, AnyLogic has in this latest release, in 7, the big release, they've put in place some very nice mechanisms for specifying across the model time units that you can specify in units of your convenience, and it will automatically convert them for certain needs, or it will as long as you're consistent, it will allow you to use whatever time units you want. Model may be in years, but you might specify some things on a monthly basis, or for that matter, a daily basis, and that won't be a problem as long as you're making it clear it's on a daily basis there. So the model won't run any slower if we specify the time unit to be months compared to years. It's just that there's, for certain epidemiological quantities having to do with chronic disease, year is a more natural, is a more natural sort of time unit to specify them in. But we'll actually have our choice of specifying a lot of things in a time unit of our choosing. Okay?
So you could have a fiscal year rather than a calendar year if you wanted to.
Yeah, so AnyLogic does, yes, that's true. AnyLogic does allow you to specify a calendar, and I'm going to, I actually haven't made heavy use of this in recent years, and so I'm trying to remember exactly where it is. Well, we could specify for a given run of the model, you know, what's the start date in calendar time and what's the end date. And this is significant because it allows us to ask, is it a weekend right now? Is it during opening hours for our clinic? You know, is it a holiday? We can actually ask these sort of questions based on the actual schedule. And, you know, we could have opening times and closing times of our clinic specified. And we could specify the arrival of and departures of staff based on those opening and closing times. So before 9 a.m., there's one vet on, you know, in the clinic, and then between 9 and 5, there's 3, and then after 5 p.m., there's 2 until 9 p.m., where there's 1 after that, or something like that. It's very convenient to be able to specify things by time of day. So there is a calendar run, and you could have, you know, you could have some things which are operating off of fiscal year, and some things that are operating off of calendar year. Okay? Okay, so good questions. AnyLogic's time is by default continuous, and we're going to see this in a big way in coming in the next few hours. Okay? Okay. Or we're going to be emphasizing that in terms of some of the features. Any other questions with that? Okay, so let me nuggetize